These sweet and decadent carrot cake scones are based on the combination of the English carrot cake using British mixed spice and Scottish scones. Since spring is the season for blooming vegetation and images of hopping bunnies enjoying their carrot, why not make a batch of carrot cake scones for your Easter breakfast table, an afternoon snack, or any day of the week? These scones are light and tender, filled with grated carrots, orange zest for freshness, mixed spice for warm flavors, and butter cut throughout for moistness, richness, and outer crispiness. The cream cheese orange glaze on top elevates these scones to sheer indulgence like a cake. Let's check them out. For the ingredients, the scone dough includes all-purpose flour, baking powder, baking soda, salt, brown sugar, butter, freshly grated carrots not prepackaged, orange zest, heavy whipping cream, vanilla, egg, and traditional British mixed spice or cinnamon. The cream cheese glaze also includes cream cheese, powdered sugar, and juice from the zested orange. We begin by making the carrot cake scones. So go ahead and line a baking sheet with parchment paper and set that aside. In a large bowl, we'll combine the dry ingredients. So first you're gonna add 420 grams, which is 3.5 cups of all-purpose flour. Add 12 grams, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, 2 grams, half a teaspoon of baking soda, and 3 grams, half a teaspoon of salt. We're also gonna add 2 grams, which is 1.5 teaspoons of mixed spice or cinnamon. If you don't have mixed spice, you can't find it or you don't want to make it. So we're just going to give this a quick whisk. Mixed spice is a common spice used in British baking, though not popular in other parts of the world. You can easily make it from scratch using a combination of cinnamon, nutmeg, allspice, mace, cloves, ginger, and coriander. If you don't have these ingredients, just simply use cinnamon in the same quantity. I have a recipe for my version of British mixed spice in the recipe for the carrot cake scones listed below in the description and in the comments. So if you want to make your own, just simply look at my recipe. We're going to add 128 grams, which is 2/3 of a cup of packed, that is brown sugar. And we want to just mix up all the dry ingredients and make sure that that brown sugar is evenly distributed. Okay, so now let's add our fat. You can use a pastry cutter like this, knives, forks, or food processor to cut in the butter. We're gonna add 170 grams of diced butter, and this is about 3/4 of a cup, which is 1.5 sticks. You're gonna cut in the butter until the mixture resembles small peas. If you are using a food processor because you're used to using a food processor for making pie crust, biscuits, and such, go for it, just use that. My grandmother and mother always used a biscuit cutter and cut in the butter by hand, so that's what I do. But use whatever you're comfortable using. We're gonna stir in 110 grams, which is 1 cup of freshly grated carrots. You wanna grate your own carrots here because they have more moisture, and that is better for our scone than having a pre-shredded carrot that may have been coated in something that keeps them from being so moist. And 110 grams is about 10 to 12 baby carrots and maybe 1 or so large carrot. We're gonna add the zest of 1 small to medium orange. Stir this in to make sure that the carrot pieces and the orange zest all gets coated and dispersed throughout. I like the orange in this carrot cake scone because the orange goes well with carrots. It adds freshness, and it's sort of getting us ready for the spring and summer season. And it blends very well with the warm spices. At this point, if you like nuts, you can add in 1/2 cup of chopped walnuts. If you don't, then just leave them out, and I did not put them in mine. Okay, you can see all the butter pieces and the carrot pieces. So let's go ahead and make a well in the center of our flour mixture here. In a separate bowl or in a measuring cup, you want to measure out 177 milliliters, which is 3/4 of a cup of heavy whipping cream, or half and half if you can't find whipping cream, or just regular whipping cream. It doesn't have to necessarily be heavy. I like the heavy. I like that really thick moisture. Just helps to tenderize the dough. We're also going to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. And in a separate bowl, I'm going to crack 1 large egg. And as always, I crack my eggs in a separate bowl just to eliminate shells and also the potential for a bad egg, which I have had before a couple of times. It's very rare, but it does happen. Just give it a quick beat just to make it easier to mix in with the heavy cream and the vanilla. And then just pour that in. and then give all that a quick little stir. Like so. Doesn't take long since we already beat the egg. And then in the well of our dry ingredients, we're gonna pour in the heavy cream and egg mixture. And then just mix everything well until the ingredients really are just moistened. Lightly flour a work surface. And then just scoop out your scone dough. If it's a little dry, don't worry, because we're gonna knead it a few times to ensure that all that moisture gets kneaded in. Like with scones, the dough is gonna be a bit dry. So knead just a little bit till everything is mixed in well. We don't want any sections of moisture, because if we do, then when we cook and bake the scones, that section of moisture will spread more than the rest. Once you've kneaded it a few times, just ensure that your board is floured so the scones will be easy to lift when we form our little rounds. Then pat out your dough to about 1 inch thick. To cut out our rounds, you're gonna need about 3-inch in diameter circle. I'm using just a biscuit cutter. You could use a cookie cutter. If you don't have either one of those, you could also just use just a drinking glass. This is a little bit larger than 3 inches, but you know, if that's what you have, it will still work. Okay, then just go ahead and start stamping out your rounds. And they should look like that. You're gonna place them about 1 inch apart on your cookie sheet. So it's easy just to stamp them out, give it a little twist, and it helps to release them. We're over halfway there. I have some dough left over, so I'm just gonna put it all back together. Give it a little knead to smooth it out again. Add a little bit more flour so that it doesn't stick. Press out to that 1 inch thickness. So this is my last one. If you wanted a really big one, you could just place the rest of the dough like this and it's round on the baking sheet, or you could stamp it out so it's the same size as the others. And then you have just a little bit of dough left over. If you have extra space on your baking sheet, you can bake one little sample for yourself. That's not a bad idea. Or as the baker. So there's your tiny one. I love being able to see the carrot grated throughout and the butter chunks. That's what's gonna make it flaky and rich and tender. All right, so then we're gonna add about 1 tablespoon of heavy cream in a small bowl. You can use regular milk here if you've run out of heavy cream, or half and half, or whatever you're using. And then we're just gonna gently brush the tops of the scones. And this will just give it, again, added moisture to the top, give it a little bit of a pretty shine and add additional richness. And it keeps it from hardening and allows it opportunity to expand upwards. So I don't like to put the moisture on the sides, or else the edges will sort of poof out. And so we're just gonna do this for all of the scones. And I like using heavy whipping cream because you can actually see what you've brushed. A heavy whipping cream has a thick white coloring. This recipe makes 12 scones, as you can see, and I had a half of one that I've just put aside for now. Place the baking sheet in the freezer for 20 to 30 minutes. We want the butter to be really cold before we place it in the oven. That'll increase the flakiness of the scones. While the scones are in the freezer, preheat the oven to 400 degrees. Remove the scones from the freezer and place in the oven. We're gonna bake them for 25 to 30 minutes or until golden brown. Our scones are hot out of the oven. We're gonna let them cool while we make the glaze. To make the cream cheese orange glaze, in a small bowl, we're gonna add 113 grams, which is a half a stick of 4 ounces of cream cheese. It should be softened to make it easier to blend up. And then I like to just take a fork just to smash it out a little bit, just to increase that softness. And to that, we're gonna add 180 grams, which is 1.5 cups of powdered sugar. And then use your fork and just combine them and mix them until they're smooth. If you want this to go a little bit faster, you can use an electric mixer. Okay, notice how creamy, it's not lumpy. We're gonna add 1 tablespoon, which is about half of an orange, and this is the same orange we used to zest. Pour that in there, and that's 1 tablespoon. And we're gonna add 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And then we're gonna mix it up again until it is smooth. Okay, this looks pretty good. I think it's a little bit thicker than I want, so I'm just gonna add a smidge more orange to it. And you have the other half of your orange, so it's not like you don't have enough orange for this. And then just add until you get the consistency of what you think a glaze should be. And it should be thin enough that it's easy to spoon on top of the scones, but also thick enough that it stays on the scones. So a little bit runny, but not too much. It can hold its shape. So that's what I'm looking for, so that works for me. I'm just gonna cover and store the glaze in the fridge until I'm ready to eat the scones. You can make the glaze days ahead of time and just keep it in the fridge until you're ready to use it. Let's check them out. Notice the even brownness on the tops and on the bottoms. They are a sturdy bread. They rose and gained height in the oven. They do shrink a little as they cool. They crack on top. You can spot the grated carrots throughout. They're just all over. Oh, you hear that little crispiness? Cut on the inside. Oh, I can already see orange zest, the carrot. They have a crispy exterior thanks to the caramelized butter and brown sugar. They are tender from the butter. The brown coloring is due to the mixed spice and brown sugar. The warm spices are permeating my house right now. It smells so good. Once the scones have cooled completely and when you're ready to serve them, you can add the toppings. You can spoon the glaze over them right now, so that's what we're gonna do. So you just decide how much you want, and this just adds extra sweetness and indulgence to the scone. Add the toppings when you serve the scones. I wouldn't put them on before. So I've chosen to use toasted coconut on mine. You could use shredded coconut if that's what you have. And again, this just adds a little bit of color and texture. And I think coconut just goes well with carrots and orange. You could also add some shredded carrots since that's what's in the recipe. Or if you have some extra orange zest, you could add that as well. And if you like nuts, you could add some chopped walnuts to the top too for, again, that nutty texture and extra crunch. It's really whatever you want to do. And it's pretty much that simple. That is your carrot cake scone. There are so many ways to go from simple to elegance in your scone presentation. Now that's a gorgeous looking scone, whether it's simple or elegant. If consuming later, store the glaze covered in the fridge separately from the scones until ready to serve. You can store scones sealed in a bag or container at room temperature for up to 4 days. For longer storage, place scones sealed in a bag or container in the freezer for up to several months. Then just heat from frozen in the microwave until heated through. Add glaze and toppings as desired and enjoy. These scones are quite addicting in my opinion, and the season is just right for them. Serve them simple without any glaze or toppings, or add indulgence to enhance the scone flavors and elevate the textures and richness. Regardless, you get a great tasting sweetbread. Thanks for watching, liking, and subscribing. Until next time, go bake the world.